The evening before my daughter's wedding should have been filled with nothing but joy. Instead, it became the moment everything quietly began to unravel. We were seated at a candlelit table when her fiancé leaned back in his chair, smiling in a way that didn't quite reach his eyes. Then he said something that would echo in my mind long after the night ended. He told me the perfect gift would be for me to disappear from their lives completely. My name is Elaine Porter. I'm a single mother who spent years rebuilding a stable life after losing my husband. My daughter, Lily, has always been my world. Her wedding was supposed to mark the beginning of her happiness. But in that single moment, I realized something was deeply wrong. The rehearsal dinner looked flawless from the outside. The hall shimmered under soft lights, laughter filled the air, and Lily stood near the piano, rehearsing her vows with a nervous smile. She looked radiant, full of hope for the future she believed in. Across the room stood her fiancé, charming as ever, greeting guests with ease. Everyone adored him. Everyone except me. I had noticed small things over time. The way he avoided direct answers about his work. The subtle tension in his posture whenever someone asked specific questions. His stories always sounded polished, but never entirely real. That night, my unease settled deeper into my chest. When Lily caught my eye, I smiled back, hiding the storm building inside me. I didn't want to ruin her happiness. But something about the man she was about to marry didn't feel right. Later, he approached me and asked to speak privately. His tone was polite, but there was something cold beneath it. I followed him into a quiet room away from the noise. The moment the door closed, his demeanor changed. The charm vanished, replaced by something sharper. He spoke calmly, almost casually, as if discussing something ordinary. He told me that Lily and he had decided I was too involved in her life. That they wanted a fresh start without interference. Then he repeated it clearly. He wanted me gone. I asked him if Lily truly felt the same way. He assured me she did, claiming she simply didn't have the courage to say it herself. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't about independence. This was control. When I asked what would happen if I refused, his answer was simple. Lily would be forced to choose between us. As he walked away, leaving me alone in that silent room, I realized one thing with certainty. He thought I would break. But he had no idea who he was dealing with. That night, sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his words again, cold and calculated. By the time the sky began to lighten, I was sitting alone in my kitchen, staring at a quiet house filled with memories. On the counter lay the documents for a small lakeside cottage I had bought years ago. It had been my sanctuary, a place where I imagined spending peaceful days in the future. Lily loved it. She always spoke about it as if it would one day be hers. But there was something her fiancé didn't know. It still belonged entirely to me. If he wanted me to disappear, I would grant that wish. Just not in the way he expected. I opened my laptop and sent a message to my real estate agent, instructing them to list the property immediately. I wanted it sold quickly, no delays, no second thoughts. Then I made another call. I asked the event staff to place a sealed envelope at every guest seat during the reception. They didn't question me. They simply agreed. By the time the sun rose, my plan was complete. Months earlier, I had quietly hired an investigator after noticing inconsistencies in the man Lily trusted. What I received in return was far worse than I imagined. Evidence of deception, financial manipulation, and people who had lost more than just money believing in his promises. Each envelope would contain a piece of that truth. Carefully printed, impossible to ignore. As I sealed the final envelope, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not even revenge. Clarity. The morning of the wedding arrived bright and beautiful, as if the world itself refused to acknowledge what was about to happen. I dressed calmly, carrying the box of envelopes with me as I left the house. At the venue, everything was already in motion. Flowers, music, laughter. It was a perfect illusion. In the bridal suite, Lily sat surrounded by her friends, glowing with happiness. For a moment, I questioned everything. I wondered if I should stay silent, let the day pass, and deal with the consequences later. But then I remembered his words. He didn't just want distance. He wanted control over her life. When Lily asked if anything could go wrong, I simply told her that sometimes things fall apart for a reason. She smiled, not understanding, and I didn't explain. There would be time for that later. As the ceremony began, I watched her walk down the aisle, full of hope. For a brief second, I almost stopped everything. But the truth was already in motion. And there was no turning back. The ceremony ended with applause and celebration. From the outside, everything appeared perfect. Smiles, photographs, music drifting through the air. But beneath it all, something was waiting. The reception hall glowed with warm light as guests took their seats. Conversations filled the room, glasses clinked, and the atmosphere buzzed with joy. Then the announcement came. Each guest was told there was a small token of appreciation waiting for them at their place. One by one, hands reached for the envelopes. For a moment, there was silence. Then came the first reaction. A sharp intake of breath. A confused whisper. Then another. And another. The mood shifted instantly. Voices grew louder as people began comparing what they were reading. Confusion turned into disbelief, and disbelief quickly became anger. At our table, I watched as his expression changed. The confident smile faded, replaced by something far less composed. Guests began standing, holding papers in their hands, demanding answers. Accusations filled the room, each one supported by evidence that could no longer be denied. Lily turned to him, her face pale, asking what it all meant. Before he could respond, more voices rose around us. Stories of lost money, broken promises, and carefully constructed lies. I spoke calmly, letting the weight of the truth settle in the room. He looked at me with fury, asking what I had done. I told him I had simply given him what he asked for. If he wanted me gone, I would take everything he expected with me, including the future he thought he had secured. The situation escalated quickly. Guests reached for their phones, some contacting authorities, others demanding immediate explanations. His attempts to regain control failed. The mask he had worn so carefully was gone. And then the final moment came. Authorities stepped in, confirming what the documents had revealed. The room fell silent as everything collapsed around him. Lily stood frozen, her world breaking apart in front of her. The celebration was over. The truth had taken its place. By the end of the night, the hall was almost empty. The decorations remained, untouched and meaningless now. The laughter had vanished, replaced by quiet conversations and heavy silence. Lily sat beside me, her expression distant, trying to process everything that had happened. The ring on her finger no longer held the same meaning. Slowly, she removed it and placed it on the table. She asked how she could have been so blind. I told her the truth. People like him don't rely on force. They rely on trust. They create doubt, isolate you, and make you question your instincts. But real love doesn't do that. It doesn't demand that you cut ties with the people who care about you. It doesn't ask you to shrink yourself for someone else's comfort. That night wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. In the days that followed, more truths came to light. What seemed like a single deception turned out to be part of something larger. There were others involved, other victims, and other stories waiting to be uncovered. Instead of stepping away, I chose to act. Together with Lily, we turned what had happened into something meaningful. We began helping others recognize the warning signs we had almost missed. We shared knowledge, built connections, and worked toward preventing the same kind of manipulation from happening again. What started as a moment of betrayal became something unexpected. Purpose. Looking back, I realized something important. He told me to disappear. And in a way, I did. I disappeared from the role he tried to force me into. The silent, powerless figure he thought I would be. In my place stood someone stronger. Someone who refused to look away from the truth. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. When something feels wrong, trust that feeling. Pay attention. Ask questions. Don't ignore the quiet warnings inside you. Because sometimes, seeing the truth doesn't just protect you. It saves you.